Are we sure that Lane Kiffin is really going to leave Ole Miss?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Crossover edition of Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making both Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're brought to you by FanDuel, where right now you can bet $5, and if it hits, you can get $300 to use across the app. We're going to be talking about Ole Miss and how they've not only used the transfer portal to get to this point, because it looks like they're pretty much a surefire bet to get into the playoff, but how after this season, because they won, it could get even better. And to start the show, this is what we have to really talk about. Are we sure that Lane Kiffin is most likely to leave? I don't necessarily think so. And the guy that I've got coming on right here, Mr. Stephen Willis, host of Locked On Ole Miss. I know that Stephen is not so sure about that either. Stephen, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing quite well. How you doing, Brian?
Doing good, man. This is as good as it gets. It's late October. It's my favorite week of the year because you got Halloween, which is Nick Saban's birthday. Shout out to the GOAT. And it's also just a great combination of football games every week. We have no idea who's going to win the SEC, the ACC, Big 10, Big 12. It's a lot of fun, man. I enjoy this time of year a lot.
Yeah, Ole Miss versus LSU should be Saturday, and I'm not going to back off from that statement. It should always be a Halloween game.
If they get it that way, I would vote for it. I'd vote all day for that. That'd be great. Speaking of Ole Miss and LSU, that's ironic that you bring that up, Stephen. How ironic. What's your take on the whole Brian Kelly situation first? We'll get into Lane Kiffin as we draw into this, but were you surprised, A, that Kelly got canned, and B, besides Kiffin, who do you think LSU will go after? Because it impacts everybody in the SEC and across college football.
I'm not surprised that he got fired. I am surprised that it was as quick as it was.
Yeah,
to where quick. It was a really fast thing, especially whenever state politics got involved and the story all around that stuff. Yeah, I was surprised about that, but not surprised about him getting fired. I thought he was on the hot seat going into the season because I don't think he was a fit to begin with at LSU. We can make fun of the whole family thing and all of that, but it just never fit in South Louisiana for Brian Kelly. So I wasn't surprised that he got fired. I am surprised that he got fired as quickly as he did. Listen, people that are looking for the next coach at LSU, you look at the odds, you have to go down the list on the odds list, but I would pay attention personally to Kenny Dillingham. Everybody is going to try and find their own Mike Elko in this cycle. It's a copycat world that we live in. Dillingham at LSU is 10 times what Dillingham at ASU would be, and he had ASU in the playoff a year ago. You wouldn't have to pay him $90 million guaranteed or some contract that the athletic director at LSU is like 2 for 2 with the Jimbo Fisher and Brian Kelly thing. He is somebody that would help. I would pay attention to Kenny Dillingham at LSU.
That wouldn't shock me. He's at his alma mater, but ASU, is even Kenny has discussed publicly, they got to do more with NIL. And I mean, when I say more, I mean like loads more. Like it's not close to where it needs to be. And that's awkward. So I don't know. He's building a house or he's got a house out there or whatever, but he can, with his money, he can buy a house anywhere. I don't really put much stock in that. So we'll see. Which leads us directly into the Kiffin situation. He's going to be on their list. Do you think that would work for him? I mean, ironically, his daughter is dating a linebacker at LSU. I don't really think that matters, but what is your take on the whole scenario? Like Kiffin's wife, they're back together. They were divorced, blah, blah, blah. I've heard different things about that, but she's a Gator by trade. She went to Florida, if I remember right, got connections at the school. I think if they left, it would be there. Why should I believe he would be sincerely interested in LSU?
I have a hard time thinking he would be interested in LSU. other than the fact that they have the brand that they have, and the last 3 coaches won a national championship, and all of the stuff you've heard from national talking heads saying that it's a surefire thing. He has to go to LSU. And you just go, why? He makes as much money as Brian Kelly was making, essentially. He has a higher paid offensive coordinator. He has a higher paid defensive coordinator. The roster building structure that Ole Miss has put together is through the roof right now. What exactly makes that program for him a better job? I get the brand stuff and all of that, and Louisiana being the only show in town, which with Tulane rising up, that's not quite what it was either. But I don't know that for Lane Kiffin, LSU is remotely a better job than Ole Miss. And Nick Saban today was quoted as saying the exact same thing. You would have to debate long and hard about the LSU job and the Florida job in comparison to Ole Miss and which one is the better job because of how good Lane has it at Ole Miss. Everybody knows exactly how good Lane has it at Ole Miss. The only people that are talking right now, there's been nothing concrete one way or another. Anybody that says they know how Lane is going to go on this, they're lying to you. But the people, the talking heads, all of the opinion makers and all that, they're trying to push Lane Kiffin out of Ole Miss. And I hate to be a conspiracy theory person, Brian, but that just feels like he's at Ole Miss and not at Florida or not at LSU. They're prepared to have what he does at those places more so than at Ole Miss. And we've talked about for the last 2 years, he's had 3 10-win seasons in the last 4 years, soon to be probably 4 in the last 5. That makes the national establishment of the talking heads nervous because they prefer to have 10 programs that they have to focus on every single year. And Ole Miss, Indiana, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, them being in the top 10, that means more work. They're not going to be down with that.
I don't disagree with it. I think that there's a lot to be said with it. So, yeah, I highly doubt they thought that at this point in the year, Vanderbilt and Indiana would be top 10 teams, which that is weird. Don't get me wrong. I'm an Indiana grad. I never thought this day would happen, but it is what it is. College football has changed. Ole Miss is a part of that. Mm-hmm. So I picked them to go 10-2 this year. And here we are. My question for you next is this. With Kiffin looking around and all that, do you think it's going to be a distraction for the team at all? Or at least allegedly looking around. Allegedly.
I don't. I had Daquan Wright on my podcast this week. And he said that, hey, in the next 30 days, there are no days off. There's no bad days that you can have, which tells me that the locker room, at least the leadership in that locker room, understands the opportunity that they have. They have 4 games that's going to hit to where they should be 10-point favorite plus in all of them. If you win those 4 games, that leads to the biggest game in the history of the state of Mississippi being played. Because a playoff game in Oxford, it would trump anything else. And maybe then you have a bye where you're going down and playing in the Sugar Bowl or something like that, which if other than LSU, Ole Miss is the one team that you don't want to face in the Sugar Bowl because the amount of fans that they're going to bring to the game. I think that the way everything is set up, the locker room's fine. They understand. Listen, after Winston Watkins, Winnie had a big game, SEC Freshman of the Week, had 111 yards receiving against Oklahoma. After that game, he got 3 calls of offers of people pre-portaling and all of that. It's at the point where the stuff that goes on with Lane Kiffin goes on with everybody. So it's not an understanding he's going to leave us or whatever. No, they get it because it's happening in their circle. So I think they're going to be pretty locked in and pretty focused and talking about what they can do with the Ole Miss Rebels going into a playoff and possibly beyond. I think this has a chance to be a special year for Ole Miss fans. I think all Ole Miss fans should enjoy this because honestly, Brian, next year is here for Ole Miss at this point. You need to treat November like next year is here.
I agree with that. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation on this crossover, Locked on Ole Miss and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda, who crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, including being the IIHS Top Safety Pick Awards winner, as having more awards than anybody else as of August of 2025. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Stephen. Thank you once again for coming in and doing the show with me today. And thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Please like and subscribe to Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal. If you were to have the opportunity, for those that don't know, LSU's in a complete structural change. This is awkward for them. Their president's changing this week. Allegedly, it's going to be the McNeese president or something. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on.
The athletic director has to change too.
I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a mess.
this couldn't be the worst time for them, but that's another story. If you took Dillingham out of it and Kiffin, who do you think LSU would go after and why?
I'm going to tell you who they should go after. Any team in the SEC should go after this guy, and it's John Sumrall at Tulane.
I would agree, but we both know what the problem is there. Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
LSU does not want to hire their little brother's head coach.
Yep.
And because of that, they're going to overlook. It's the same thing that happened with Billy Napier. Let's put aside everything that happened at Florida with Billy. When Billy came out of ULL, they were humming. They were winning 10 games a year. He was the best G5 coaching person on the market, and LSU didn't even look at him because he was the coach at ULL. That same thing is going to happen to John Sumrall. And especially when it comes to the LSU job. When you look at everything, it looks like it should fit, but John Sumrall should be the guy they go after. Now, after that, it gets weird because, like I said, LSU is probably going to try and find their Mike Elko because they are owed, I don't know, $800,000 a month to Brian Kelly for like 6 years or something like that. That's a ridiculous amount of money that has to be paid. But whenever you hire, I would not be surprised if it was somebody like Chris Kleiman that got hired or somebody in that vein, because you can get them. It's an Elko thing. It's a really good football coach. If you can do that at Kansas State, imagine what you could do at LSU type deal. I think that's the name. Now, they're going to offer Nick Saban $20 million a year. They're going to offer Lane Kiffin $20 million a year, probably. I don't think either one of them at this point are going to take the job. And then you get the Mike Elko level hiring, where it's just a good football coach, but not necessarily the big name thing. Now, people are going to get upset about that because they want to splash hiring at this point. They want a $20 million coach. That's what they're programmed to want. But that's not something where you're going to be successful. I think it's interesting. The news going around Twitter right now is that James Franklin are talking to the Virginia Tech people about closing that. That'd be a good fit, I think, in Blacksburg, because Franklin did a pretty good job at Vanderbilt before NIL and all of this stuff made it to where Vanderbilt could win games. I think him and Blacksburg, I think that would hurt Tennessee, if we're going to be honest about it, because there's a little bit of the same layer of player that they recruit. So splash hires this year, I don't know if this is the cycle for that. Getting good football coaches, yes, there are quite a few, as long as you don't let your ego ruin it.
I think Glenn Schumann from Georgia, the defensive coordinator, Kirby's right-hand man and linebacker coach, possibility for some jobs. I'm not saying it's LSU, but you never know. I also am a big fan of Buster Faulkner, the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Georgia Tech, who was at Georgia with Kirby, with Schumann just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and he's also the Locked On Vandy host, Corey Burton's cousin, by the way, Buster Faulkner.
Is he really? That is a small world right there.
Yeah, small world.
That is buck wild. Okay, well, then you never know. You just never know. But there's other assistant coaches out there that are possibilities, and it's kind of fun just to discuss it. But this all leads to one thing that I want to kind of close the rest of the show, the next 10 or so minutes. Ole Miss is trending, obviously, to make the playoff, and barring something very unforeseen, they're going to be in. I think we can safely assume that at this point. They're probably 90%, injuries or something just goofy. They've done well with player acquisition over the last 3-4 years, and they've changed how they've done it, done a little better with high school. You and I talked about getting Eccles and Franklin, among others, in-state kids, et cetera, to get going where they need to. How good do you think Ole Miss's portal class will be if Kiffin stays, even if they don't win it? Like, let's just say they win one game. What do you think their portal class is going to be like when it's all said and done?
I think that next year they could have an elite portal class, like a 2024 level portal class. And this is the advantage in the 4D chess. If you want to think that Lane's playing 4D chess, and I don't think that's the case, but if you are the person that thinks that, look at this. LSU's roster is available to be picked over and combed over. Florida's roster is available to be picked over and combed over. Arkansas's roster is able to be picked over and combed over. There's several commitments that went to different places that you can go after. Hugh Freeze, not safe. Deuce Knight could transfer as well. We've been talking about that for a year at this point. The players that are all around in the second place home and what Ole Miss can build, it can look a lot like how they got Kewan Lacey, how they got Caleb Odom when going after players on these rosters. And Jace Matthews could fall into Ole Miss's hands again. This portal class and this signing class for Ole Miss, not even to mention Deuce Gerald's, but I can't even believe I forgot to mention that. Lane Kiffin could have an elite portal class with a roster that is ready to win now before the portal class. This Ole Miss football team next year, Austin Simmons, the starting quarterback, if he decides to hang around, or if Trinidad Chambliss, who the rumor is that they're going to go after a waiver to get him a 6 year of eligibility. I don't know if it'll work. Either one of them coming back with Kewan Lacey as a junior or sophomore or whatever that is, with the wide receiver and the skill players they can get. The fact that offensive line wise, Ole Miss is basically through their previous portal classes have gotten transfers in that had 3 years of eligibility that are performing on the interior of that offensive line. With what's happening on the defensive side of the ball and all of that, they have a chance to be really, really good, and it would pour jet fuel on the fire if Lane Kiffin stayed at Ole Miss because of all of the chaos that is happening around the SEC right now.
I agree with all that. I want to talk to Stephen about the quarterback situation at Ole Miss, how it has evolved, and what's next. That's next here on this crossover edition. Today's show is brought to you by Peloton, who is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and to reach peak performance. Peloton IQ is a system that offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects everything with your form, making every rep safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, Stephen, it's time to discuss the quarterback room at Ole Miss, which is always an intriguing topic. I assume Trinidad won't be back, but if he is, that takes care of that. But that also brings up, how would that work with Austin Simmons? There's a million directions we can go with this. I don't know what your thoughts are. You're the Ole Miss guy. How would that work if somehow Trinidad had another year? Let's take it from that point and move forward.
Okay. Let's start with Trinidad in another year and where that came from. It started with the press releases after he transferred to Ole Miss saying he had 2 years of eligibility. And why did they say that he had 2 years of eligibility? Well, the Ferris State people told the national championship broadcaster from that game that he redshirted in 2021. He medical redshirted in 2022. It's a normal 6-year type waiver that Ole Miss is looking. They're not looking for Diego Pavia or anything weird. They're just trying to get a medical redshirt in that second year of eligibility, which is a normal 6-year program that has happened in college football forever. This isn't anything new or strange. Now, whether they grant it or not, I do not know, but that's what they're trying to do. Trinidad, if he gets it, he's obviously going to be the starting quarterback, but the question remains, if he gets Ole Miss to the semifinals in the college football playoff this year, do you strike while the iron's hot and go into the NFL and try and do the Kyler Murray thing? I talked and asked Daquan Wright on the show a little bit earlier, how tall is he? He said he's 6 foot. That seems like a right number. But we will see. Trinidad has been a revelation for Ole Miss this year. The other question that you're going to have is, what does this mean for Austin Simmons? I think Austin Simmons is completely attached to the waiver process for Trinidad Chambliss going into next season. If that waiver gets approved, Austin Simmons is probably going to go into the portal and going to get everything that he wants there. Now, I will say this. David Simmons, Austin Simmons, everybody have been nothing but class during this. It was a situation that everybody talked about before the season. They were worried about the family surrounding Austin Simmons because of the way they were brought up, because they thought a Todd Marinovich situation would happen. That hasn't occurred at all. Austin has been nothing but a stand-up guy. David Simmons has been nothing but a stand-up guy, and even said going into the Georgia game is that even though Austin is 100% healthy, Trinidad probably needs to start this game. And that is coming from them. So I expect if Trinidad gets the waiver, Austin's probably in the portal and gone. If Trinidad doesn't get the waiver, Austin Simmons is probably the quarterback at Ole Miss next year.
That's pretty much how I see it. I mean, they could go other directions, but it is what it is. All right, let's talk about the roster in general. Where should Ole Miss fans expect the Rebels to try to prioritize after this season because of this guy's going on to the NFL and graduating?
Wide receiver, obviously, and tackle. That is the money position that Ole Miss is going to attack in the transfer portal, in my opinion. You're losing, I think, Diego Pounds and Jaden Williams, both of the guys on the outside, and they've done a really good job at pass pro for Ole Miss this season. But I do think that Ole Miss is going to go out and try and find a tackle. Now, the question becomes, do you go after a left tackle or do you go after a right tackle? Because one of your quarterbacks that might be back for next year is a left-hander, one is a right-hander. And so I think that would be an interesting hint to know exactly where their mind is at. And, of course, anything that would throw a wrench in all this, if Lane decided to move on and that window opened up, everything could possibly change. I don't expect that, and most Ole Miss fans probably do not, but we also know after the Tommy Tuberville thing, you can't completely discount that.
Yeah, I'll never forget that stuff. That was wild. When it comes to the roster, it's a lot better than it used to be. And this team's got some younger guys. Like Kewan's a sophomore in eligibility, isn't he? The running back?
I think so. Either a sophomore or a redshirt freshman. It depends. I don't know how many games they played in Missouri, but let's say sophomore.
Okay. So, I mean, they're in a pretty good spot in a lot of areas. And I'm not worried about wide receiver. It's not hard for Lane to get receivers. That's one of the easier spots to get in the portal anyway. What about tight end for them next year? Who's going to be left, and do they need to take more than one?
Luke Haas, who played at Arkansas, will be back. And their tight end room is really good because they have Caleb Odom as well over there on the tight end side of the ball. Tight end wise, they're going to be fine. Heck, with Winston Watkins and Caleb Cunningham and all that, they may not have to go hard after wide receivers for next year whenever you look at the fact that Deuce Alexander is coming back and guys that were big competitors this year. I think tackle is important. I think defensive line, you're probably looking for somebody to take the place of Xavion Harris and complement William Eccles. I think you're looking for that. I think you're looking for a Chris Paul type heat-seeking missile at linebacker to replace TJ Daugherty. And I think I think if they could have gotten AJ Halsey on the back end of that defense, it would look so much different because, the back end of that defense, they obviously are calling the defense to protect the secondary. That's because they haven't found a free safety that they can trust. If they had a free safety that they can trust, the defense would be called completely differently.
That is the name of the game, my friend. Roster building, every single player changes how you operate. So Halsey's a really good player. Unfortunately for him, LSU's they've kind of bitten the dust, even though he's been he had a pick in that game against A&M. That was the interception in the end zone. He's the one that got it. But their offenses, it is hard to watch.
Yeah, they could let go of the rope pretty quick.
Yeah. By the way, their last game this year is at Oklahoma. Somebody's got to win. That game, neither offense is any good. I don't know how it could be 10-6, but somebody's got to win that game.
I'm hoping for a 3-2. Remember that Mississippi State Auburn game from back in the day? 3-2? Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. That's so bad. People paid money to watch that, Stephen.
Yes. Worked all week and look forward to that.
Yeah. That's something they'd like to erase from their mind. Last question for you. Who do you expect to be in the SEC championship game?
Until I know otherwise, I'm going to go Alabama and Georgia. But with A&M being undefeated and you look at their schedule, it's hard to imagine them losing a game. But I said Auburn, Georgia at the beginning of the year that somehow it'll find a way to be that again.
Alabama, Georgia. Yeah.
Alabama and Georgia. Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me, but Alabama's run game stinks.
Yes,
they've had one game this year.
Mm-hmm.
One game where running backs went over 100 yards. At Alabama.
Where Derrick Henry went to school, right? Mark Ingram, that Alabama?
The one where the Bear coached, Nick Saban coached. Yeah, that one. Ryan Grubb's great with the passing game, but they need to figure out the run game because if they take that game into the playoff, they're not going far. No. They're not. But that's their problem, I guess.
I think there's a really good chance that they win the rest of their games until Auburn, and then Auburn pops them.
It wouldn't shock me because that game's in Jordan-Hare. It'd be hilarious, by the way. It'd be hilarious. All right, Stephen, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
All right, you can check me out on YouTube at the Locked On Ole Miss podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. We just want to have fun following Ole Miss sports, and we try to do that every single day. We have a ton of stuff with the normal podcast. We have players, we have coaches, and all of that that's come on the show. It's grown by leaps and bounds. Thank you very much for checking that out. But I'm telling you, Brian, this feels like it's going to be a long few months for me. I figure my workload's not going to stop at the end of November like it has.
Yeah, I think that is 100% correct. So enjoy it while you can, though, friend. It's going to be a good time for all of us. You can find the Portal Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, and wherever you get your pods. This has been a crossover Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On the Portal.